into it. As I said before, welcome to the FlipSide Podcast. This is episode 1. I have a very important guest who's here. His name is Frank Comer. Me and Frank go back to the Chili days. I feel like it was like it was supposed to be like this. You and I spoke about the youth for years, and when I finally got out here and about to start working with the youth, I wanted you to be the first person who sit down and talk to me. You know what I'm saying? You got a epic story. Um, the character, everything about you is something that I always looked up to. So it means a lot to me to have you sit down with me. Let's jump right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who was Frank before the conviction? Tell us something about Frank, where you come from.
Well, of course, I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, downtown Ohio, or as most people call it now, over the Rhine.
Okay.
That's where I grew up at. Prior to being incarcerated, I was reckless, I was selfish, irresponsible, and I didn't have a care for nobody, outside of my immediate family. Didn't nobody else matter. And so that person uh, grew up with anger, violence, and it was what contributed to that anger and violence was the fact that my biological father was murdered in the crack game. And so I carried the spirit of revenge. And so anytime that I became angry, I looked at the person that I was mad at as the perpetrator.
Got it.
And so my only recourse at looking at this person was to inflict pain. I wanted him, or, I wanted them to suffer like I was suffering, like not having a father. And so it controlled my life from the time I was 8 all the way up until the time that I was convicted and sent to prison.
Okay. So you say, hey.
So
When you say you from down the way.
down the way.
Okay.
The land of no get back.
The land of no get back. And that's what this right here, this gonna be global. It ain't just gonna be local. It's gonna be people listening to this all over. Trust me. So when we represent our city, but we also represent our community or our hood.
That's right.
Like coming in the door
Right.
in prison, people like, where you from? You from Cincinnati?
Right.
I'm from Licking Heights.
Right.
Licking Heights might be something that's in Cincinnati, but I'm a rep where I'm from.
Absolutely.
And I love the fact that a brother like yourself, because we positive brothers now.
Mhm.
Even though we from different neighborhoods, we still get to the edge where we ain't beefing because we from different neighborhoods, because it's about the character of the person.
Right.
You know what I mean? So some like these youngsters out here, they beefing because this neighborhood against that neighborhood, and people like us OGs, we got to be the one. It's cool to rep your hood, but you don't got to be out here beefing with another hood.
You can rep your hood and not be geographically challenged.
I like that.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
I mean, things now have always been universal.
Yeah.
And so, like you just said, you can rep your hood, but it don't have to be to the point to where you want to cause physical harm to somebody or destroy, a place where, that person may live.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, repping the hood, representing the hood is cool, but it's a way to do it.
Yep.
You
Man,
know
me
what I
and you
mean?
could go, we'll be able to go for hours, man.
Mhm.
I want to definitely stay, on the course, because part of this podcast, I want to bring people on who have made bad decisions or bad choices. And I want the youth to see how these bad decisions and bad choices affected their life.
Mhm.
I had one of my cousins who he kept saying, man, ain't no way they give me that much time. Ain't no way they give me that much time. I'm like, man, they will give you that much time and not care nothing about it. So when I used to go to 2020 and speak to the kids, and they was like, I wish you would have came and spoke to me before I got in trouble. So I know it's a lot of youth that can take heed to what you went through and what I went through. And there are some adults who can take heed to it if they want to sit down and listen. We talked about this. Frederick Douglass got a saying: "It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men."
Right.
So I want to catch them when they're young and try to mold them so they don't have to come back and tell a story as we telling right now.
Right. And I can definitely agree with you, good brother, because I was one of those youths. You know what I mean? And when I tell you that I participated in self-destruction, I did. I'm talking about from the age of you graduate after sixth grade, then you got that summer, then you start the seventh grade.
Yeah.
And I believe for me, that's when things started to change for the worse that summer. Uh, I ended up running away from home. I ain't going nowhere but over my granny's house.
Mm-hmm.
But when school started that fall, it started in September. By November, I was in 2020.
Okay.
And so we talk about, the violence that's prevalent in these different communities. And so, like I said earlier, from the age of 12, I carried the spirit of revenge. I was angry because somebody had murdered my father, my biological father. And so the first dose of violence that I committed, in which there were repercussions as a result of the decision I made, I actually jumped on my seventh grade teacher.
Wow.
You know, beat him to a bloody mess,
Really?
and that started the ball rolling. Like, from that point, I can say like violence was my way of communicating. Especially if I felt like you know I was being demeaned or being wronged, or something that I didn't like. You know, the end result or the response was violence, and it was easy to do because the platform that I stood on was anger. I was angry. You
What
know,
year? What year did you catch your your big number? What year did you catch? So I want to give the viewers a chance to understand what may have been going on in the streets at this time. So tell us what year.
February the 21st, 1986.
1986.
Yeah.
Was crack out yet, or
I
crack
mean,
came out about that
people,
time?
people, people were, still snorting. A few people were, lacing their weed with cocaine,
Uh huh.
and you know what I mean. But for the most part, you know, the '80s was a very terrible time for any young adult black male. You know, regardless of what city or state you stayed in, it was bad all over. And so even though I didn't come up in the crack era, I did, however, come up in the era what we call flatfoot hustling.
Blackfoot
And
Hustler.
flatfoot hustling is, you can wake up in the morning, be dead busted, but the guys you grow up with, everybody got a hustle, going on, and they'll bring you in, and y'all make a few dollars here, and you take that money, invest it to get more money. Sometimes it worked out for you, sometimes it didn't. And those were the chances that you take, just like you took the chance to get those few dollars. So that's what I did. I was unemployed. I was a high school dropout. Uh, my future was bleak. You know what I'm saying? It was in total contrast of the way I was brought up. I actually dropped out of high school as a junior. I had
Hmm.
track and field scholarships offered as a sophomore. I was taking all college preparatory classes, so I was always, attentive in school, but, it was just this one particular day I didn't, I said, I'm not going to school no more.
Yeah.
I wanted, to learn what was going on the sidewalk,
Mm.
and that was the decision that I made, and that decision cost me 33 years, 8 months, and 13 days of my life.
A lot of youth who get into things right now, like I said, they think that they won't give me that much time. So, what was the charge? Um, and tell us a little more about your sentence. I understand you did 33 years, but tell us more about your sentence. And was you fortunate enough to have an attorney, or did you have a public
Well,
defender?
I um I was actually charged with aggravated murder, aggravated robbery. The sentence was life with 20 years actual incarceration and a consecutive 10 to 25 with 10 years um, actual incarceration. Basically, what I had was a 30 to life sentence. And, being where I'm from, couldn't afford an attorney. So I did have a public defender, but this public defender was doing the bare minimum. I mean, he didn't care too much about my guilt or innocence. He was just basically like, going through the formalities of trial. And this is why we call them the public pretenders instead of the public defenders. But eventually I felt like if I would have had a paid attorney, some of the facts, surrounding the case wouldn't have been distorted. The prosecutor always had a power to create his own narrative to get his conviction, but the attorney need to create a different narrative to get you found not guilty.
Right.
And in most cases, though, man, it doesn't happen the way that we would like. You know, the client and the client's family are left feeling, like they have been betrayed. Because we look at attorneys, we look at the justice system. It's supposed to be equal protection under the law,
Right.
but we know from past experience it's not always like that. Sometimes, the color of your skin is criminal in a sense, and it's sad though, but it happens. And one of the things that these young cats need to realize is that they need to just sit back and reflect. Like, you have so many other things against you. Crime is just, I mean, black males are born at a disadvantage. The president said it himself
Mm-hmm.
that they are born to be criminals, you know, and that's surely not the case. But there are things in place to where when we make the wrong decision, we think we're making the right decision, but it's set up like that. You know what I'm saying? It's set up for us to fail. And so, incarceration, it even though it's a place of, hopelessness and despair, it will give you the lessons to see or to help you realize the mistake that you made, and to see what you can do with the rest of your life after incarceration.
So listen here, we got Frank Comer telling us about 33 and a half years that he served in prison for a bad decision, a bad choice that he made. We got a lot of viewers out here, and I want to tell them to please like, share, subscribe to the YouTube because I'm going to have guests talking about their journey. Once you got this massive sentence, what was that like? You went through, so 86. I didn't hit CRC until 95. So tell me, what was it like coming through CRC, or what prison did you get sentenced to?
Well, they actually, CRC wasn't even built,
Okay.
when I went to prison, and so they had just closed the Ohio Penitentiary. So,
OP.
right, OP, the old OP. So, Chillicothe Correctional Institution was operating like CRC operates today.
They see.
And so I left Cincinnati on May the 7th, 1986, and arrived at Chillicothe Correctional Institution on the same day. And I was in Six House. I remember it like it was yesterday, cell 329. And I went to classification, and they said that they sending me to the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility. That's Lucasville.
Lucasville.
21 years old in maximum security, thinking like, what the fuck I done did? You know,
Listen to what he's
right,
saying, y'all.
you know,
I want y'all to understand that. 21 years old, Lucasville. We know about Lucasville because y'all remember the Lucasville riots. But we talking about in
in
1986.
the 80s, right,
We talking about in 1986.
right.
The details that you remember let me know how life changing that event was.
It definitely was a different experience. I definitely had adjustment issues, that resulted in me, being a disciplinary problem. One of the first things that I seen, I was only there for a week and seen a brutal murder. And so that helped me to, really, really realize what type of environment that I was in. Now, mind you, I had did 3 juvenile incarcerations, but this adult incarceration was nothing like.
It's different.
It was totally different, man. I mean, the brutality of you can smell, the sharpening of metal at night.
And making shanks.
Yeah,
Listen, we got Frank Comer on here. We talking about a life sentence he ended up doing 33 years on. This is raw, pure, and uncut. Listen what I'm saying, youngsters. Y'all see people in there with cell phones right now. They showing y'all they got all this commissary and they got Jordans or they got shoes. Let's talk about the real type of stuff that go on behind the walls. People do still get murdered in there. Within the first year, Frank seen somebody get murdered in prison.
first week.
Within the first week, Frank seen somebody get murdered in prison. So tell me, how do you come in a situation like that? How do you make a name for yourself? What was going, like I said, we raw, pure, and uncut here. Because I'm going to tell you something about what it was like when I came in, which was 9 years later.
Right. Well, for me, like I say, growing up, I became angry and violent as a result of my biological father being murdered in the crack game. And so you see anger, violence, despair, hopelessness in those type of facilities back then.
Right.
So, it's sad to say that those juvenile incarcerations that I did, it actually prepared me, because as a youngster, you go into these juvenile facilities, them ain't number gladiator schools.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you honing skills and don't even
Strong
know.
survive.
You don't even know really. You think it's about a beef, but you really honing these skills because history going to tell you that this is not going to be the last time that you be incarcerated. You know what I'm saying? Each time you come home from a juvenile bit, you think you done got a little slicker, a little faster.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you go out and make that irrational decision and get caught up again. The next thing you know, you at the big house. But
let me tell you about my first day. You come from CRC, they put you on the white jumpsuit. So everybody know walking through the compound, y'all brand new. So when I come through the receiving, where you from? Cincinnati, Licking Heights. What's your name? Dwight Price. So one of the guys on receiving like, Price, it's a Price up here named Ronald Price from Licking Heights. I'm like, yeah, Ronald Price. I'm like, that's my uncle. You know what I'm saying? That's my great uncle. So word gets sent to my uncle that I'm there. But when we go to our dorm, me and my cousin, we co-defendants, we go to the dorm, and it was a guy that was on the bus on the ride up there, and he was telling us, like, listen, when y'all go in here, just mind your own business. I've been locked up. I got 3 or 4 numbers. Everything gonna be cool. So we all listening and we tuned in. I'm 18 years old. My cousin's 17. So we tuned in listening to this guy. So later on, I remember standing in line for the phone, and the same guy that was telling us how to carry yourself throughout prison, he came walking past us. He had on some little shorts, he had a shirt tied up in a knot, and he had makeup on. So I'm like, I say, cuz, I'm like, you see, dude? So he walked past us like, I damn near holding on to somebody like pants, like walking behind him. He didn't look at us because he didn't want us to see that he had turned into a chump that quick.
Mm-hmm.
So me and my cousin was like, I said, man, I don't know what happened to him, but that ain't gonna happen to us.
Right.
If we gotta die in here,
right.
We go to the shower. We under one shower head. I say, listen, when I put soap on my face, you make sure you look inside the side. When you put soap on your face, I'm looking side to side. I said, I don't know what happened to dude, but whatever happened to him, we are dying here before that happened to us.
Right.
I didn't know at the time he was already like that. And once he came back through the doors, people just latched back on to him because they knew who he was.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But 18 years old, fresh into the joint, that scared the death out of me, man. Yeah. It scared me. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you have, what I call prison foolishness. People that participate in that foolishness, though, right? And what dude told you on the bus is the number one rule that is most important. Mind your business.
Right.
You see something, but you don't see it.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Because you never know the reason why, guys, do what they do. And, is that type of activity prevalent in prison? Yes, it is. But everybody don't participate.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I had to, it was so bad for me in Lucasville. When I say bad for me, with all the violence and the inmates killing each other, the COs killing inmates and things of that nature, that my sister, who was like my mama, I used to have to write a note every day and put it in the mailbox. If I couldn't put it in the mailbox, I had to give it to somebody else to mail out for me.
Yeah.
Because she wanted to know, because she had friends that had brothers that had went through there, and some got maimed or even killed.
Yeah.
Dude grew up across the street from me. The COs killed him.
Dang.
You know what I'm saying? So, my sister had a lot of concern about, my well-being, and just said, like, one of the things that she would tell me was like, just mind your business and get on out of there so you can come home, not realizing I got to do 20 years first.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it was the love of her and the concern that she had for me. Like I said, that's my sister, but she looked at me like I was her son.
You mentioned your father got killed. So tell us about, telling us right now that your sister was there. What about your mother, or who else was there with you? Was any of your partners there with you? Because these guys nowadays thinking, if I get locked up, they thinking they're all the friends they got, all the people on here talking about free such and such. They ain't gonna be by your side, man.
No.
That's a pretty lie. We here to tell you, we ain't gonna tell you a pretty lie. We're gonna tell you the ugly truth. So tell me, was you fortunate to have some people in your corner? And if you were, who were those people?
Well, like I say, my immediate family, like, my sister mainly, my mother, she didn't stay in Ohio at the time. She was actually staying in Norcross, Georgia. So I think at the age of 14, I went to stay, with my sister. And I was still trying to do the right thing, but with nobody in that household that can, rein me in. This my sister, this not my mama. And we would clash, but I still, once I walked out that door, I'm gonna do what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But she made sure that I had everything that I needed, and once my nieces and nephews, became of age, you know what I'm saying? Then they started to contribute.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So I always had a a good, strong family structure, throughout my incarceration. And then I had a couple of guys that I actually grew up with that, stayed in contact. If it wasn't with me personally, then it was through my sister or my brothers, my nieces and nephews, somebody like that though, right? But no, the hood is not gonna take care of you.
The hood is not gonna take care
You're
of you.
gonna represent the hood, you're gonna do this for the hood, but they ain't gonna take care of you.
Man, that's deep.
You
That's
know what I
deep.
mean? They gonna leave you hanging. And as soon as you go to jail, one of them guys that you thought was your friend,
Gonna
he
be
done
that.
pushed up on your broad already.
Pushed up on your bride already.
So that's another thing that you got to deal with. I mean, in prison, especially during the infant stages of my incarceration, I was thinking about that girl. I had 2 kids with her. It was driving me crazy because
Yeah.
I know somebody out there tagging it.
My
You know,
dude Pete the Heat from 7th Street, he used to tell me when I, showing people my pictures, and he like, hey, Shorty, I'm gonna tell you right now, hey, don't be thinking about her. Don't
right,
be worrying about her, because somebody gonna be at her.
right.
And I'm like, oh, you're older dude. I'm
Hmm.
like, man, quit messing with me like that. But I see now, as I learned and was in jail, they were just trying to school me. I want to ask you this question. Do you feel like if you had, say, a mentor in your life before you caught your case, that could have possibly helped? Because that's why I go out here, like we say, Frederick Douglass says, easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. So I go out here trying to speak at high schools. Whoever gonna open up the door and invite me there to tell my story, I want kids to know the mistake or the bad choice that I made. And this can't be oh well, long as my kids don't do this, my kids don't do that. Your kid can be a straight A student. I know about some Ohio State girl. She was trying to take some Adderall to stay up to study for an exam. The Adderall was covered with fentanyl. And
Right.
guess what? Killed her. She
Right.
died. So I don't want to hear that your kid won't do this or your kid don't do that. All it takes is one bad decision. Right now, you can leave from church. You can leave from work. Go get drunk, commit
Vehicular
vehicular
homicide.
homicide or whatever. So nobody is beyond making a mistake or a bad choice. But you think you would have had a better chance if an adult mentor was trying to pull you under their wing?
Well, I did have mentors, but they was criminally minded.
My
You know
man,
what I'm
my
saying?
man. I like that.
But when I talked to, I actually went to a youth summit, and one of the things that I can identify with is that them kids, one, they didn't have nobody to talk to. Two, they wanted to talk to their parents, but the parents would never ask the question,
Mm,
"What's wrong?" So if I would have had, like in my case, when I was going through the juvenile justice system, I can remember when the juvenile judge say, "Miss Coleman, what's wrong with him?" "I don't know, Your Honor." She didn't know because she never asked me questions.
mm,
As a child, you don't know how to, approach your parent and start a conversation about what's bothering you or what's compelling you to, you know, be this vicious or be this violent or be this angry.
right.
Never asked that question. My mother never asked that question. The mentors, you know what I'm saying? The ones that would get you on the straight and narrow, never existed. You know what I mean? So it was like I was out there in the wilderness, the streets, by myself, and I had to make the decisions in order to survive in that wilderness. You know what I mean? And like I say, my only form of communication was violence because that's a language that when you out there in the street, everybody understands.
So we speak about the gift. We can speak about the gift and the curse of the hood,
Mm-hmm.
but then we touched on mentorship. So it made me want to ask the question of, do you agree with, they say it's our job as a parent to become better parents to our children than our parents were to us. I feel like my father told me some things about the street life. I said, I'm not going to teach my kids nothing about the street life. So even though I was the type of parent that was able to provide for my children from getting it out the mud, getting that money, they ain't have to worry about no money. They ain't have to worry about no video games and nothing like that, clothes,
Right.
because I took care of that. But I went to prison 3 times out their lives. So I told my kids, take all the good y'all got from me, but the bad, that's the only reason I don't feel like I was a great parent. I feel like a great parent not gonna put themselves in harm's way to where they can be taken away from their children. So I told my kids, I'm raising y'all to have a career. I'm raising y'all to have a job. I don't want y'all throwing rocks at the penitentiary, going out here trying to get money to take care of your kids like that. Right. So I can honestly say I have been a better parent to my children than my parents were to me. Mm. So like you said, parents need to sit down and talk to their kids. They need to have discussions with them. Ask questions. So I'm glad you touched on that because that wasn't even on my mind frame coming into this, interview. I didn't think that would actually come up. I really wanted to talk more about the prison, but a person like you, it's gonna be so many things we can bounce back and forth. Right. I already know we're gonna have a part 2 to this. I already know. Right. We're gonna have a part 2 to this. Right. I want to ask you a question about this because I met you later on toward the end of your bid. Mm-hmm. I'm not for sure how many times you went to the board, but if you can enlighten us on how many times you went to the board, what type of flops you got, what did the board tell you? How was your, record? Did you program? Did you go to school? Was you staying out the way? Or was you in there just surviving and you wasn't even thinking about how you was going to get out or when you was going to get out?
Well, one of the things, the internal motivation that I had, was to, be released from prison. And I look forward to the day that I was going to be released. You know what I'm saying? So in having the vision to see that, it took a lot of sacrifice and preparation. Mm. You know what I mean? One thing about prison, it definitely, if you have a desire to, come back to society or re-enter society, you definitely gonna have to make some sacrifices. Okay. You definitely gonna have to humble yourself. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Because prison it's a predatory environment and it's challenges every day. You know what I'm saying? Whether they mental, physical, you're gonna get challenged every day in one form or another. And so
it's up to the person to rehabilitate themselves.
Rehabilitation is definitely self-initiated. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You don't need the unit managers, the COs, none of that to prepare you to go see the board. I actually had 13 years worth of flops. 13 years worth of flops. You know what I mean? And, because I went into these parole boards, I actually went to parole board like 4 times and ended up making parole the 5th time. Mm. But each time that I went and was denied parole, I just looked at it like, well, maybe I came up short somewhere. And so I would have to, go back to the drawing board and basically like, go through my self inventory and see what I was missing. You know what I mean? So each time that I was flopped, I learned a little bit more. You know what I mean? And so, one of the things, back to the infant stages of incarceration, while I was being a disciplinary problem, my mother would write me and tell me, you're going to be the one that likes to succeed. How I'm going to be successful and I'm doing this life bit. Right. But she always told me that. And I didn't really understand it until the last time I was doing the LC, local control, which was 6 months at a time.
In the hole.
And I used to do them back to back. So once the light bulb went on in my head, I figured out in order for me to, really be the person that she see, that I had to change. I had to change my way of thinking. I had to change that. I took an inventory of self. Like I said earlier, I was a high school dropout. I was unemployed. I was always angry. I was violent. You know what I'm saying? I was all these negative things, and I identified them. And so one by one, I started to address them.
Like, share, and subscribe, y'all. We got Frank Comer here talking about being incarcerated for 33 years. He just brought up he had to change the mindset while it was in there. Mm-hmm. So let me tell you, I was fortunate enough to have my grandmother pay for a lawyer. I didn't have, public defender, but you can still be misled by a paid attorney because they had me think I'm following this because what you said about the parole board. They had me thinking you ain't never been in trouble before. When you go to the board the first time, you got to take the board 6.5 years. Stay out the way, keep your nose clean. They gonna pay you. Came in there, went to school, got my associate degree, staying out the way. And when I went to the board, they gave me 5 years. So when they give me this 5 years, I'm like, I'm hurt.
He done took the money and ran.
I'm hurt.
Right.
So I'm like, dang, like I'm thinking if I come in here and take care of my business, but then when I'm in there, you learn. You ain't here for a body. You ain't about to get paid your first time up.
No.
So you can be deceived by your attorney.
Right.
Now, once you go through it, you know for a fact, oh, you ain't about to get paid off the rip. They're gonna give you time just on the strength of what you was charged with.
Right.
Now, true enough, your actions can cause you to get more time because after that 5 years, I was released. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing 11 years on the age of 25.
Right.
But you just, when you brought up going to the parole board, I'm like, you know, you got flopped. I got flopped one time. You went through it, and it's like the hype, the anticipation of possibly getting released. Then you get hit with that hammer once again, and you got to go back inside the walls and tell these people, tell your friends, man, they just flopped.
Right. But you know, man, going to the parole board though, good brother, it can have devastating effects on different individuals because just like your lawyer told you, keep your nose clean, you'll get paid, you'll come home.
Yeah.
Other people believe that too, and so when they go to the board and get denied, they really can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And so suicide is prevalent.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We was in Chile where they was jumping off the buildings
Yeah.
head first. You know what I mean? And so the parole board, like I said, incarceration, it can be physical at times, but it's mostly mental.
Mostly mental.
You know what I mean? And so, the parole board, they play these mind games with you. You know what I'm saying? Because, they whole premise is to have you self-destruct so they can be justified in giving you these flops.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You really have to understand that you have to really stop playing checkers and start to play chess.
You gotta play chess.
You know what I mean? And so, for me, once I took the inventory of self and I identified, the factors that led to my incarceration, it was easy. The number one thing that I wanted to do, and I said I would never do, was get my GED. I used to say, fuck school. I ain't going to school. You know what I mean? But once I started to see the dynamics of what I was up against, I knew that, number one, education would be a key factor. I used to have a real bad stuttering problem.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I used to, that's another thing that used to get me angry and get me, disciplinary sanctions or whatever though, right? But I knew that once I got the GED, that, for me, the sky was the limit in terms of learning because I always been attentive in school. You know what I mean? So now it was mandatory that I take advantage of this opportunity. Got the GED, got the college degree, and start to do various programs and earn trades, this, that, and the other, because I look forward to being released. Right. Didn't know when it was going to happen,
but
I wanted to be ready when it did happen.
Absolutely.
And so, that's what I did. And like, I excelled in a lot of different areas. And by excelling, I became, that much more conscious, that much more intelligent.
Yeah.
Even with my vocabulary, it expanded. Because now I'm hearing things, words from the parole board, and I really can't understand them.
Right.
I had to write them down and go back and look them up.
Yeah.
Oh, this was adjudication.
Yeah.
Oh, this what this is. So I know now when I go back to the board and they bring that up, I know
what
the definition.
They ain't talking over you no
more. No. And so I felt like that was most definitely, important for me to continue, the journey of change that I was, undergoing at that particular time, though, right? But it was definitely my patience, me being humble, and by the grace of God that I sit here with you on this podcast.
Absolutely, I agree with
You know
that.
what I mean? And I don't, you know, looking at me, you might not think that, you know, I'm a spiritual person, but I am. I was praying every day. You know what I'm saying? Silently, people might say, "Oh, he's losing his mind," because they might see me talking to myself, but I'm actually making prayer.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And it worked out. And now, part of my redemption is to, tell my story, and if I can save one life, I'm doing great. You know what I mean? And so that's what motivates me. That's why I don't have no problem, telling my story. If it's going to help, like I said, I can identify with these kids out there. I just ain't never shot nobody. You know what I mean? I own the gun, but I never used it on nobody. You know what I mean? And so, these kids, I tried to get a job at the juvenile detention center. I made it through 2 interviews before the higher up said no. You know what I mean?
And see, what I think is people like you and I, we've been through the struggle. I ain't trying to knock nobody that went and read about it in the book, but I was telling somebody the other day, I can't tell you what it was like to hit that game winning shot in game 6 of the NBA finals. I might have read a book about Mike doing it, but I can't tell you what it was like. So when you got these people going to college and they studying, trying to learn, them are the people that they have put in those type of facilities. But I feel like brothers like you and myself who are on the right path and we lived it before, we know what it's like to tote a pistol. We know what it's like you said, we was, well, y'all was coming up, hitting licks, casing houses and going inside, or me hustling, selling dope. So I know what some of these kids are going through. I might be able to identify, well, I can identify with it, and I might be able to convince them about another way to go. They looking at these counselors sometimes who talking to them I'm like, man, you don't know what you're
They
talking
don't
about.
have,
They don't got the validation.
not
So
only that, they don't have the experience.
They don't have the experience, right?
You see
Right.
what I'm saying? And so, Tupac said it, he said it the best way I can explain it. He said in order for him to get his message out, he had to come as one of the people that was listening to his music, which was the thugs.
Gotcha.
So, his message really wasn't about thug life. He was operating as a thug to pull the masses in, then flip the message.
Gotcha.
So you got this college educated person as a staff member at a juvenile correctional facility.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't gonna be able to identify it. They can teach you everything in the book and you can apply it, but it's one thing that you lacking. That's the experience.
They say that's life's best teacher.
Life's best teacher. A woman cannot teach a
be
male how to be a man.
Absolutely. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm with you.
Right. So she can, groom him and take him to the race, so to speak. But he gonna need another man, another male to get him across that finish line.
I believe.
You know what I mean?
Believe that 100%.
So with what we talking about with these young cats, they need us to get them or to help them turn themselves around.
And more adults like us got to step forward to be willing to do that, to be willing to share our story. That's why on the podcast, I'm going to have people here. Everybody might not have got out of jail and was able to start their own company like, I was. But if you came out of jail and you a different person, you a law-abiding citizen now, got a 9 to 5, I want people like that to come and sit down and talk on the podcast. I mean, that's why the whole thing about the name is the FlipSide, the FlipSide Podcast, because I'm telling the kids, or I'm telling just people in general, whoever want to listen, that life ain't like these videos going viral. Guys showing everybody in there ain't got this big ass store and getting money. No. Don't get me wrong, it is some guys in there like that, but these videos that come out, that's like a in the 1 percentile. You know what I mean?
It's like when I see, because I look at when I'm at work, I look at Instagram, I look at Facebook. I had one Facebook friend, which is uh, my third youngest daughter, and we just got back to having a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So she my only Facebook friend, but before she became my Facebook friend, I would watch these videos. You know what I'm saying? And it's sad to see that, people or cats are wearing incarceration as a badge of honor. You know what I mean? And it should never be like
In our
that.
community, man, in our community, when people come home from prison, they'll throw this big ass, party for them. They don't even celebrate their kids coming home from college the way they'll celebrate somebody coming home from prison. And I feel like that's one of the things that's a problem in our community. I used to tell one of my family members, the way your children watch you cater to or uptalk the people who are here committing these crimes, that can be leading your children to feel like that's okay. I used to ride past the block with my kids on the car. Probably 90% of the people on the block probably got what they got some kind of way that came from me.
Mm-hmm.
They speak, what's up there? I just tell some guys, man, when you see one of my kids and my family in the mall, don't even speak to me. I don't even want my kids to see me associating with a guy that look like you. You got on all this jewelry, pants hanging down off your ass. I don't even want, man, you see me, don't even speak to me. Because I don't want, what's your dad? Who is that? I don't know, somebody I knew from school. But these are the people that behind my children back, I was dealing with.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm so glad to be able to have turned that corner to where I'm no longer doing anything illegal. So now I feel comfortable coming out to speak and talk to kids.
Right.
Like, this is my passion, this is my purpose. This is what I love to do. I feel like I had to go through what I had to go through so I can come back and tell a story to these kids. Because without me going through what I went through, I wouldn't have the validation to be able to tell them I know what it's like to be in your situation. I know what it's like to be in your shoes. But guess what? In 2020, I told them I was 17 years old sitting in this same room. I thought the world was going to end in 2000 before I got out of prison.
Right.
But I was able to come out. My story is a story of redemption now, for real.
Right.
It's a story of redemption. That's why I wanted you to come on here, because I know we sat down in Chile, man. We used to talk about how we can get out here and work with the youth. So I'm like, now it came full circle. I wanted you to sit down and be my first guest on the podcast, because we had so much, history. We had that connection to be able to chop it up.
Not only that though, you know what I'm saying? Like, there are many personal achievements and accomplishments that I garnered while I was incarcerated. But the number one thing I can say is not the GED, it's not the college degree or any certifications that I got, but the one thing that I hold dear is that I was able to become a writer. And as I excel at becoming a writer, I call myself a social activist. I'm still, even though I'm incarcerated, I'm still a member of the Black community.
Right.
I had concerns.
Yeah.
And so, I aligned myself with this lady out of Columbus. She owned her own magazine, and it just took off. Like the first piece that I ever, wrote was the restoration of a community, in which I talked about myself being a liability in the community.
Y'all hear that? And he just said a liability in the community. Mm-hmm. Ask yourself, what are you to your community? Right. Are you a liability? Or are you an asset? Tell me more about why you feel like you was a liability to your community. That's deep.
Because, I say I was a liability because I wasn't bringing any productivity to the community. I was tearing it down or taking from it.
You hear me?
You know what I mean? And so,
let's keep it real when we keep it real. Yeah, talk to me. Yeah, talk to me. I'm listening. We listening.
Listen, I was definitely a liability. Like I say, anybody that's not contributing to the overall success of the community is a liability.
Absolutely.
You know
and
what
we
I mean?
Got a lot of liabilities in the Black community. And one problem, we need to quit turning a blind shoulder to the people who are liabilities to the community. When you get to being a certain age, you got to quit that.
We look at it, the people that's turning the blind eye. We really can't blame them because they scared, they fearful. You know what I mean? Because these, and I ain't being disrespectful to none of these young cats. You know what I'm saying? Because I was that age at one time,
Yeah.
but I was never at that age disrespectful to my elders.
Absolutely. It was always a respect. Right. I'm with
Listen,
you.
here come Medea, here come Miss Fraser.
Yeah.
And put that bit down.
Yep.
Put that cigarette out. Put that joint down.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Respect.
But now, these guys, they have no respect for their elders. You know what I'm saying? They'll tell you in a minute, man, school, get out of my face. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it should never be like that. But, they turning a blind eye because they don't want the same people that they really want to correct attacking them.
Nah, that's deep.
You know
I
what
agree
I mean?
with you. That's
And
deep.
so,
I love that perspective.
It's crazy. I say yes, ma'am, yes,
To
sir,
this day.
to this day to cats younger than me.
Yeah.
Because I wanna, that's my way of showing them respect. Sometimes you got to lead by example.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. When I say, to a guy that's 21 years old, yes, sir. Or to a young lady that's 21 years, yes, ma'am, how you doing today?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Showing them something different, like, there are many forms in ways in which we can give back.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And, what we doing with this podcast, I believe it's only the beginning. Like you said, it was meant to be. It was meant to be. And, when we was down, I might have an idea. I come and write something. Man, what you think about this? You know what I'm saying?
So did.
He'd be like, oh, man, that sounds good. Did you? So, yeah, I'm going to do this presentation, though, man.
Yeah.
And, another thing, while you're incarcerated, the more successful you become at individualism, handling your business, the more headaches you're going to create.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying?
Ooh.
And, one of the things I tell the young guys, when I have an opportunity to talk to them, tell me again why you killed that guy over there. You feel disrespected. Oh, so that's why you killed him. Okay, so when you go to jail, when you go to prison, that same respect gonna happen again.
Mm-hmm.
You gonna kill that guy,
right?
You ain't gonna bust a grape,
right?
So by not killing him for the same reasons that got you sent to prison, it should tell you something. It wasn't worth it. But see, this is what they call hindsight. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, you really have to make, and I got a lot of reasons why, these young cats are doing what they're doing, committing murder at alarming rate. I understand why. You know what I'm saying? And, the media has a lot to do with that. But for the unsuspecting mind, if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know that you've been played, or if you don't
know better, you can't do better.
Man, you don't know that the role that the social media play, the misrepresentation of rap music, the media. You know what I'm saying? They got these people now in Cincinnati that come around, what they call them, bloggers.
Bloggers, yeah.
Going to different neighborhoods talking
about who got
the
toughest block, making it.
You creating it unknowingly, creating this competition.
Yeah, for sure.
So if Avondale has 13 murders, and then they say Warner Hills got 12, but they say that Avondale is the hardest hood, because what Warner Hills gonna do? They're gonna try to up the ante.
We got Frank Comer right here, y'all. We keeping it 100% real. We keeping it 100% real. Man, listen, I know we're gonna have to have a part 2. Because I definitely ain't even get through half the things I wanted to talk. So I want to ask you one thing, man, about, like I said, we talked about meeting in Chile. And I don't know if Fred introduced us or because, some other people was like, but anyway, we made that friendship, that bond. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you something that stuck with me ever since. I envisioned this conversation how Michael Jordan looked at Kobe Bryant. And I never told you this before, but this one I'm going to tell you. You approached me one day and you said, you know what, Shorty, because when you come in the joint, you get a nickname. Mm-hmm. A lot of short people.
I know what you're finna say.
Hold up. And I'm shorter than you.
Right.
But they came in the door. My name just started being Shorty Price. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Right.
I meet you, they called you Big Shorty.
Yeah.
So you tell me one day, you said, you know what, Shorty? He's like, you know what? Out of all the years I've been locked up, you the first guy that I know came across who I feel like deserved to be called Big Shorty.
Right.
And I'm like, what? You said, man, I'm gonna start calling you Big Shorty.
Right.
So I be coming across the yard and I hear Big Shorty, and I'm like, what's up, Big Shorty? What's up, Shorty Frank?
Right.
So that told me that you got me by a few years, but you said you look at me and you feel like I'm worthy to be called you. And I know you got that name, Big Shorty. You came up, you was a rumbler.
I actually got the name playing basketball.
Okay,
you know
playing basketball. Okay,
you know what I'm saying? So that's actually how I got the name. I just had one of them type of games where I was just dominating the whole game.
Right.
Somebody said, the littlest big guy killing y'all. And then somebody else said, yeah, Big Shorty killing y'all.
Yeah.
And the name stuck.
It stuck, Big Shorty.
You know what I'm saying? So I just roll with it, man.
Yeah.
And now, when people contact me, you know what I'm saying? Like I had got a message today about the podcast.
Right.
Big Shorty, how can we find it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, people still, call me that though, man. But like I say, prison is a different animal, man. And you really have to, by the grace of God, I thank him, so much that I didn't have to, commit murder. Because, when you go through trial, they paint this picture of you this animal, this sociopath. And then when you get to prison, though, right, it's one or two things that you're going to do. You either going to change or be the person that they say you was. You know what I mean? Ooh. And so, people get caught up in that whirlpool of prison foolishness where they feel like they have to be this person or allow the crime that they was convicted of to define who they are in prison.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I didn't want that. And you know what I'm saying? You have so many people that probably would never get out, but may have had chances to get out.
Damn.
But because they chose to, be who the court system or the justice system said they was.
Still making bad decisions or bad choices while they're incarcerated. Yeah, which could have contributed to them not having an opportunity to get out.
We know people that have been locked up since 1967 and 68.
That's crazy. I met so many guys that was locked up. I was born in 77. I was meeting guys who was locked up before I was even born. And I'm like, damn, you still in here? People that knew my father. Right. They was from Licking Heights. And I'm like, you from Licking Heights? I ain't never heard of you. It's like prison is a whole nother world inside of a big ass world. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like people don't understand. They will send you to life. They will send you to prison for the rest of your life. So you out here running wild, committing these crimes. It's just a matter of time before they end up catching up with you. Right. So you got an opportunity now to make better choices on the street. And that's what I want this podcast, to be about. I want people to be able to listen to a story of yours, a story of mine, and understand that it is a better way. We're going to talk about, when we talked about before, we got the instant gratification, delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is ultimately going to be better. And my podcast, I also want people to understand that when you go to prison, you're not just in there, you in there bitten true enough, but if you got a wife or a girlfriend or your kids, it affects them too. So I'm going to have guests coming on who's speaking about what it was like when their father was incarcerated. Mm-hmm. A woman coming on, maybe talking about what it was like when her boyfriend or her husband left. So if you are somebody like that, please DM me, contact me. I want to get you on the show. We got the FlipSide Podcast right here. This is the first episode. I don't know when, but Frank Comer will be back for a second episode, at least. Because this, like I say, man, we talked about working with these youth together. So often,
the Priceless Initiative.
The Priceless Initiative.
We put it together.
We put the Priceless Initiative together. Priceless Initiative. I know my name, Dwight Price, but I used to say it don't got nothing to do with my name. Right. It's because the word priceless, invaluable. That's right. It's invaluable for what the information we gonna get to these children out here, tell them about the bad choices and mistakes that we made and where it ultimately led us to.
We gon' well, with me, I'm gonna be the mentor that I should have had.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
If the person that's sitting right here participating in this podcast uh, would have talked to the Frank prior to going to prison, he wouldn't have came to prison.
My man, my man, my man.
You know what I'm
If
saying?
I would have knew, I could have got in trouble for being around the corner of where my crime. I thought, okay, I ain't going around there. I'm gonna stay over here and wait for y'all. I was still just as guilty as my co-defendants who went around there.
Right.
If I would have knew, I could have got in trouble for being around there. I would have just left. If that's what y'all want to do, I'm gone. I'm about to head back out to the zone. Y'all catch me when y'all get finished. But my lack of knowledge, I didn't know. And that's one thing I'm gonna be pushing on this podcast too, talking about just laws to know. What's your laws if the police happen to say pull you over? Do you have to do this? Do you have to do that? So man, this listen, man, bro, I got much love for you, man. I appreciate you for being the first guest on the podcast. Like I said, I'm gonna have you back. Please share your social media for the people so they can follow you.
I don't really have social media.
You don't be on Facebook or nothing?
No, and
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you why. Because when I came home in 2020, of course I had to do 5 years paper. I'm off parole.
You off parole?
Yeah, I'm off parole.
I got a question about that, man, because I was gonna say for part 2, but since you mentioned it, you off parole. Congratulations, congratulations. I want to give congratulations for making it off parole. You had to do 5 years, but tell me, with that life sentence hanging over your head, if you would have violated your
could have
parole,
kept me the rest of my life.
You hear that? Could have kept the man the rest of his life if he would have violated the parole. But he made it off the parole. Go ahead and finish. Brother.
And the reason why I don't have social media is because I had 5 years paper. But when I came home, I had to register as a violent offender for 10 years. And so, when every January when I go down to the sheriff department, you got social media. They want to monitor, Instagram or whatever, social media pages that I have. And the reason why they want to do this is because, I'm gonna use us as an example. Say you were still heavy in the dope game.
Yep.
But we communicating on Facebook,
yep,
or you FaceTime me or whatever,
yep,
and say like you got money and drugs,
yep,
laying around. When
yep,
you FaceTime,
yep,
it can be seen.
Exactly.
The sheriff watching my page, so they see it too.
Exactly.
So when they come and kick your door in and arrest you, make it seem like I told on you.
Damn, D.
You know what I'm saying?
D.
So I don't have no social media pages. Yeah. I look at Facebook and Instagram, yeah, but I just look at the video, doing my breaks at work.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I don't have no social media pages. I ain't gonna have none until I get off. I got 4 more years of to register as a violent offender.
Right.
And that was just something that they come up with in 2018.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? As a result of, excuse my language, what these bozos was doing in prison while they was incarcerated. Just acting up. Didn't do nothing to change the way they thought, and came out here and killed 2 innocent people, different times, and that's what changed the laws. And that's why, the penalty now, for even though it still goes down, but the penalty now in prison is more than likely going to be an outside charge.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So, these are all the things that these young cats got to look. If the young cat, he going to jail, he 19, 20 years old, he ain't never experienced racism, he going to experience it.
Ooh, man. Listen, man. Hey, we could literally go all day.
Right.
I ain't going to hold y'all up. Thank you for tuning in. I want y'all to like, share, subscribe to the FlipSide Podcast. My first guest was Frank Comer. He going to be back for part 2. I'm going to end it right there. Y'all know the motto. Stay down till you come up. Peace. Appreciate you, brother.